So let me quickly log into my console. So once you log into the console, this is generally what you will see. Um, yeah, so this will be the home page of your AWS account. So at any point when you log into the account, this is what you will be seeing. All right. Now there are a few things that you will need to understand here, how it works, various options you have. So here first on the right hand side, you can see your username. So whatever the username you have used when creating the account, you will see that username over here on the extreme right corner on the top. All right. Then you will have your account ID. Now, every time you create your account, AWS will assign a unique 12-digit number. We basically call that as your AWS account ID. All right. Then you can go to this account where it will show you information about your account as to the email address, the username, account ID, then the contact information. All that information will be available here. The regions that are available, which are enabled, which are disabled, and if you want to close your account at any point, you can go ahead and do that also. All right. So this is just an information about your account. Then you have organization. So this will be a separate service. I will be covering this at a later point. Then you have your service quotas. Now I told you that by default when you create your account, there is a limitation that is set by AWS. So by default, at any point, whenever you start working with AWS will set a certain threshold, certain limitation. For example, by default, you can launch 100 instances. Just an example I'm telling you. All right. So there is a limitation that is set. So let's say, I'll go to a service called IAM, for example. Okay. So we'll go to this IAM service, and here you can see the limitation. Okay. So how many keys you can create per user? So default is applied quota is 2, default is 2. And can we change that? No, it is not possible. Likewise, how many groups you can create in basically in one single account? Applied quota is 300, default is 300. Can we change that? Yes. So at any point, once you start creating your resources, and once you reach this threshold, depending on it is adjustable or not, you can ask AWS to increase this limit. So 300, they can make it to 500 to 1000, depending on whether they can increase it or not. Likewise, if you want to understand what is the quota, what is the limitation of your resources that you have, you can make use of the service quotas. Then you have the billing dashboard. Now I told you that the account that we have created, we call that as your free tier account. Now when I say free tier account, not everything is free. Okay, there is a certain limitation that is set. Now as long as you are within that limitation, as long as you're within that boundary, you don't have to pay any money, you won't get charged. However, if you go outside that limit, you will be charged. So all the information about your billing will be available in this page. So as of now, in my case, it's not showing anything because this is a new account. But ideally, once you start working with your account, and if you're getting charged, you can see that information over here as to which service you're being charged, how much you're being charged, when it was charged. All that information will be available for you. All right. And then you have the security credentials. Now this, at any point, if you want to reset your account password, or if you want to enable two-step verification, or multi-factor authentication, or you want to create access key, secret key, so all these security things you can do it from here. Right. And then lastly, you have your settings. Now you can use this to change your language if you want. You can change your default region if you want. You can change your display and all these things. Remember recently visited services, all these things, if you want to change, you can change it over here. And then finally have the sign out option, which will log out from your account. Questions?
No.
Okay. The next thing we have here on the left hand side is your regions. Now See, AWS is made up of your region. So the AWS, it is available all around the world. Now, how is that possible? It makes use of your region. So by default, when you create your account, the first time your region will be set to Ohio. That's the default region. However, you are free to use any region you want. So here you can see all these are different regions. So these are nothing but your physical data centers. Okay, the on-premise data centers which AWS is managing. So, now how do we decide on which region you want to work with? So this is generally comes down to where your customers are, where your target users are. So if your users are in the Asia Pacific region, it is recommended to use any of these regions. If it's in the US, it is recommended to go with these regions. If it's Europe, it is recommended to go with these regions so that you get a lower latency, high availability of the applications. All right. However, like I said, you can use any regions you want, and all of these regions are isolated from each other. So whatever the resources I will create in North Virginia, it will be available in North Virginia only. It won't be available in any other regions. For example, if I launch a virtual machine in North Virginia, I can access it only when I go to this region. Okay, if I change my region to Oregon, that EC2 instance will not be available, and the same applies to all the regions as well. So some of the services in AWS are region specific. Some of the services are global, meaning they are not region specific. Questions?
So if you create one like server or thing like so can we move it to Mumbai later? Like if I have to.
Uh, you cannot do that, but you can move the data. That is possible, and then you'll
Okay.
have to like, create a new server to mount that data.
Okay. Got it.
Any other questions, Bharat?
No, no.
Okay. Next, here you can see this question mark. Now, the first thing you see here is your support center. Now, at any point, so this is basically your customer care. At any point, if you're having any issues with your account, with your billing, or any of the services, or you want to increase the limit, or you need some technical support, you will be using the support center, and you will basically create a ticket, and then AWS will help you out with that issue, whatever you're having. Now, we are using free tier account. Now under the free tier account we don't have a technical support, it's not available. You get this technical support only in the billable accounts, like business account, developer accounts, or enterprise accounts. Those accounts you get the technical support as well, but in the free tier account we don't get the technical support. However, with your accounting, so let's say you're having some issue with your billing or with your account, or you have some questions related to free tier, right? You can go ahead and create a ticket. So here you can click on create case. You can choose account and billing, and then which service. So let's say you don't know some charges happen and you don't know about it. Then you can go with the subcategory, and then general question. So click on next step, and you can give a subject, description of the issue you're having, and then you can choose the mode of your communication. Okay, like you want to go with you want to chat with someone, or you want the AWS to call you, or you want to do it via email. All those communications will be available. Let me show you. So we'll fill this, let's say, and here you can see contact us. So you can choose web, phone, chat. However, you want to talk to the customer care, you can talk to them and resolve your issue. So this is simply your customer care, right? Then you have your expert help. Now, AWS has this feature. I mean, we know what is freelancing, right? Now, the same you can do with AWS as well. So AWS has this expert help wherein you can work as a freelancer, right? There is a prerequisite for this, which is you should have done your certification. Any certification, as long as you have done the certification, you can work as a freelancer using this expert help. So people will basically post their requirements, like for example, need help configuring for our serverless architecture, or workspace setup with Trend Micro and Office Professional 2016. And then what's the budget? So if you're okay with this, you can go ahead and quote yourself. And then if it's fine, people will reach out to you and you basically work for them. Okay, so but like I said, the prerequisite for this would be certification. You should have done your certification. Then you have your repost. Now, this is basically the blogging of AWS. Anything related to AWS, you will have it over here. So this is, you can think of it as your Q&A, knowledge sharing. All those things can be done in this repost. Okay, so you can say some of the recent questions, and if you know the answer to it, you can go ahead and answer these questions. Then documentation. Now, anything you want to learn about AWS, okay, you have that in this documentation available. So starting from the basics to the advanced, how to launch a server, how to create a VPC, how to connect to a database, anything you want to do in AWS, you have a documentation available for that. And the good thing about this is even it's available over the internet, so you don't have to necessarily log into your account. So even if you simply go to Google and search for AWS documentation, you will get it. All right. So you don't have to even log into the console. So it's basically open. All right. So anything you want to know, it's available within this documentation. So let's say I'm talking about RDS. So what is RDS? So let's say, guide, right? So you have the user guide over here. So here you can see what is Amazon RDS, setting up, getting started, tutorials, blue-green deployments, working with RDS on AWS, Outpost, RDS proxy. So basically everything that you need to know about RDS, how to work with RDS within AWS, you have the documentation available for that. All right. So even, let's say you're looking for something, you don't have to reach out to anyone. You'll have it. You have that information available within the documentation. So as long as you know how to look for that information, it's really simple to work with AWS. Then you have your training. Now, if you're interested in getting trained from AWS, digital training or classroom training, you have that option available as well. So depending on your role, so let's say solutions architect, right? And again, you will have some free trainings and some paid trainings available here. You can choose from that. So you can see digital. So AWS well architected, that's 1.5 hours. Getting started with AWS Systems Manager, 60 minutes. Architecting serverless solutions, 3 hours. So all these are some trainings that are provided by AWS, and you can attend this. And like I said, some of these are free to use and some of these are chargeable depending on which one you're using. Okay, I think I'll have to sign into this, but yeah, okay. So you can see this is free. You can enroll. This is a digital training, so you can do it whenever you want. And then what are the things that are covered under this will be available for you. Okay. Then you have your getting started resource center. Now, again, these are some hands-on examples that are available for you. So you want to do some projects, right, just to get an understanding. You have that available as well. So you can see launch a web application, deploy a container, run a serverless hello world, and you can explore the other trainings that are available. So depending on your use case. So let's say you're interested in containers, you will have the trainings available for containers. So deploy a container web app on Amazon ECS, deploy WordPress with Amazon RDS, run COPS Kubernetes cluster for less with Amazon EC2 Spot instances, deploy a .NET application, deploy a Kubernetes application. So again, these trainings are available for you, and you can click on this. You'll have the step-by-step instructions. So prepare your container, create a container service, deploy your container, clean up, and also you can see how much time it takes, whether you will get charged for it or not, what are the requirements. You can also have the option of downloading the code. So basically, trying out, doing different hands-on, and then finally send feedback. So if you have some feedback, general feedback or feature request or some issue, you can use this feedback, send feedback request to send us feedback. Questions?
No, all good.
Oh no.
Okay. Then you have have this bell icon. Now at any point, if AWS is facing any issues, some availability issues or some issues with any of the service, you will get those notifications over here. So as of now, you can see there are no open issues, there are no scheduled changes, or this there basically there's nothing. Now you can look at this event log to see what all has happened, what are the issues that AWS has experienced. You will have it available over here. So you can see there was some issue with the billing, there was some issue with SNS in the Ireland region. There was some. Is that it? I guess that's it. Yeah. Then there was cloud formation issue in the Oregon region. So like this, they will, again, when you click on it, you should have a detailed information as to when it started and then when it completed, what was the resolution, all that will be available for you. Then this is a cloud shell, which is basically a interactive terminal that you can use to work with your AWS. We're not going to look at that. On the left hand side, you have this AWS logo, which is basically when you click on that, it will take you to the home page, right? So the AWS homepage, and we are back to the home page. Now here on this homepage, first here you should be able to see your recently visited services. So any services that you have recently used, it will show you here. So this is basically a history. Okay, what all services you have used, all that information will be available here. This is the health, and here will be your cost and usage. Again, there are some solutions that you can try out. So how to launch a virtual machine, or how to register a domain, or how to build a web app. All that will be available over here. And if you want to create some applications, you can go ahead and do that as well. Okay. Now here, this one. So this is where you should be able to see all the services in AWS. So AWS, it's basically, it provides you 200 plus services. All right. So if you want to see the list of all the services in AWS, this is where you can see. So under analytics, these are the services that are available. Under, let's say, blockchain, this is a service. Under compute, these are all the services that are available. Likewise, let's say under database, these are the services. Likewise, let's say machine learning, these are the services we have. Under networking, these are the services. So basically, you should be able to see the list of all the services over here. And if you know what service you're looking for, here under search, you can search for that service. So let's say EC2, right? So here it will show me the service. So it's basically a search feature you have. And then here you see these are basically, you have the option of starring your service. Like for example, this one, right? So you can, if you're very commonly using some of the services, you can star it for quick access, and all those services will be available over here. That's basically your AWS console. Questions?
No.
Okay. So now we are going to start off with your first service. So the first service that we are going to look at is your IAM service. All right. Now IAM, it simply stands for Identity and Access Management. So as the name suggests, one moment. Okay, so by default, the account that we have created, okay, this account, we call this account as the root account or the admin account. Okay, so the root account or the admin account basically has full access to the account, and as a root user, we can do whatever we want within this account. However, there might be cases. So generally, what happens at an organization level is that you will have one account which will be shared by multiple people. Okay, so something like, let's say, a dev account. then a QA account, then a prod account. So likewise, you will be having different accounts, and then these accounts will be shared by multiple people. So you'll be sharing this account. So let's say I have this account and I want to share this account with you. How can I do that? So that's where your IAM service comes into the picture. Okay. So this is a web service which can be used to securely control the access to your AWS resources. So basically, if you want to allow access to some services or you want to restrict access, all those things can be done using this IAM service. So you can use this IAM service to control who is authenticated and who is authorized to use your AWS resources. So again, let's say I want you guys also to access my account. How can I do that? I can control that by making use of this IAM service. So when you first create an AWS account, you begin with a single sign-on identity that has complete access to the AWS service and resources in that account, and it is known as the root account. So by default, when we create the account, we have a user known as the root user, and this user has full access to the services. So whatever, as a root user, whatever you want to do, you can do within this AWS account. Now there are different ways that you can work with the AWS services. Okay, so one is your console. So we can use console, which is basically the UI. So whatever we are seeing here, this is your console access. Then we have your CLI access, which is your command line interface. Then I can use SDKs, which is a software development kits. I can also use API calls. There are different ways that you can work with AWS. For now, we are looking at the console. We have a separate session for CLI, where I will show you how you can work with AWS using CLI commands as well. All right. So the features of your IAM. So IAM provides you with a shared access to your AWS account. So basically, if you want to share your account, you can make use of this IAM service. So with IAM service, you can also provide granular permissions to your users. So you can, let's say for example, you want to give only read access, okay, and you want to give read access only to the IAM service, or let's say you want to give read access only to the EC2 service. You can do that also. So you can give a very granular level of permissions as well. You can also secure access to AWS resources for applications that run on Amazon EC2. You can set up multi-factor authentication, like two-step verification. If you want to do, you can do that. You can make use of identity federations. We'll talk about that in some time. Then STS, which is a secure token service, and this service is completely free to use. All right. So for this, you don't have to pay any money, whether you are using the free tier or not. This is free. You don't have to pay any money for this. Questions?
No.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is how you can create users, how you can give the permissions to them, and then how you can access the accounts. Now, you can navigate. So if you know which service you're looking for, you can simply search for it. So in my case, let's say I'm looking for IAM service. So there's my IAM service, right? So by default, if you're using this for the first time, you'll not have much things over here. Your user groups will be 0. Your users should be 0. Okay, if you're not created any users, this will be 0. Then roles will be 2, policies will be 0, identity providers will be 0. So basically, you'll not have anything. All right. Um, you once you start creating, you should be able to see the numbers over here. All right. So first thing we are going to look at is how you can create user accounts, and how you can give access to other users. So let's say, for example, I want to give you guys the access to my AWS account, right? So here on the left hand side, you can see all the permissions. So we'll go to the users. and then we'll click on add users, and you can start giving the names. So let's say I want to create a Prokshit first, for example, right? And then do you want to give user access to the management console, right? So I want to give the access, and then specify your user in identity center, or I want to create an IAM user. So there are different ways. So you can make use of this identity center which is available, or you can simply create an IAM user. So in my case, I want to create an IAM user. Then for your password, so you want to go with an auto generated password or a custom password. So we'll go with the custom password. And then users must create a new password at next sign in. So generally, at an organization level, you might have seen this feature wherein you will be provided with a temporary credential, and then when you first log in, it will prompt you to change the password. So the same you can enable over here as well. Then next, you define the permissions. So what Prokshit can do in my account when you log into my account, right? So there are different ways that you can set the permissions. You can add the user to a group, or you can simply copy it from other groups, or you can attach the permissions directly. For now, we'll attach the permissions directly. Now, what permissions you want to give? So let's say I want to give you the access to EC2 service. Okay. And again, under EC2, I want to give you read only access. So you can see all the resources, but you won't be able to create any resources. And then next, you get to review everything, and then click on create user. And this will create a user form. Now, the user is created. Now, how do you log in to the console? So here you can see this will be the URL. So you can, you can use this URL. Then you will have the username. So this will be the username, and then the password. Okay, so this will be the password. So you can use these credentials to log into my AWS account. So likewise, let's say we'll create one more user for Bharat. So again, we'll add users, and let's say Bharat, and we'll give console access. And I want to create a user. We'll go with the auto generated password. This is fine. And let's say for Bharat, we will give IAM access. Okay, so let's say IAM read only access. Next, we'll create this user, and again, the URL remains the same. It's constant, but however, I will share it once again. Then the username, and then the password. Okay. So please go ahead and try logging into the console with your respective username and password. Once you're logged in, let me know.
Yeah, I have logged in.
Okay. And now, if you try accessing IAM, tell me what do you see?
Okay. Uh, so it says some security recommendations. Access denied.
Yeah. So basically, you're getting an access denied because I have given you access to the EC2 service, right? So if you try accessing the EC2 service, it will work. But any other service you try accessing, it will not work. Bharat, are you able to access the IAM service?
I am logging in. Yeah, I logged in.
And try accessing the IAM service.
Service. No, only it's showing 1 minute. Yeah, I can access. I can see the user's roles policies.
Right. So this is because I have given Bharat the
Ah,
IAM access, right?
yes, yes.
But
In
for
EC2, I cannot see anything
yes, again because the access is restricted.
restricted.
So like this, you can make use of your IAM service. One of the features of your IAM service is creating users and then giving access to that user. So basically now what we are doing, we are all three of us, we are using one single account, but then with varied permissions. So I'm the root, so I have full permissions, but then you both, you have separate, distinct permissions. Questions?
No,
Okay. So, yeah. So next, we are going to talk about your groups. Now, what are groups? Groups are simply your collections of users. So if you have lots of users, managing those users becomes very difficult, right? So what we can do is we can make use of your groups to create common groups, like let's say developer groups, tester groups, admin groups, DevOps group. Likewise, you can create separate groups and set the permissions at the group level instead of setting the permissions at the user level, like what we have done right now. Instead of doing that, we can make use of your groups to set the permissions at the group level, and then we can start adding users to that group so that the same permission applies to all the users. Okay, so that's basically what your groups are. So groups are simply your collections of users, and groups let you specify permissions for multiple users, which can make it easier to manage the permissions for that user. So that's basically the point of using a group. So now, again, what I've done is I've basically created, both of you as individual users, right? So you can see your groups. As of now, it says none, none. That means you're not part of any group. And generally, this is not how we work. It is recommended to add your users to a group, maintain common groups, and start adding those users to the groups, right? So to create your groups here on the left hand side, you can see user groups, and as of now we don't have any group, right? So we can create a group and we can give a name to this. Let's say we'll call this as DevOps group. And then if you already have users, you can select the users you want to add to this group, and then what permissions do you want to add to this group, right? So let's say I'll give you EC2 read-only access. Let's say we'll give you EC2 read-only access, and we'll also give you, let's say, IAM read-only access. Let's say IAM read-only access. Okay, so two permissions. One is your EC2 read-only access, and then IAM read-only access. Now I'm setting these permissions at the group level. So any users who are part of this group will get the same permissions. So create group, and now my group is created. So now if I go back to these users, you will see that these users, they belong to my DevOps group. And whatever the permissions I have set at this DevOps group level, it will be applicable to all the users who are part of this group. So I can add users at any point I want. So as of now I have only two users, and both the users are already part of the group. So I can create a new user and I can start adding the users to the groups. So that's basically what your groups are. So again, groups are simply your collections of users, and you can use this to easily manage your permissions. Questions?
no.
All right. Next is your roles. Now we'll talk about your roles in some time. for now, I'm going to talk about your policies. Now, what are policies? Policies are nothing but your permissions. Okay, so this EC2 full access, IAM full access, IAM read-only access, we call that as your policies. All right, so a policy is an entity in AWS that, when attached to a user or a resource, defines the permissions. So here, for example, this DevOps group, if I go and see the permissions, so these are nothing but the policies. And this basically defines the permissions applicable to the resources that it is attached to. Now, generally, when we talk about your policies, all these policies are nothing but these are your JSON documents. All right. So AWS in the backend, all these are your JSON documents in which your policies are defined. So policies are stored as JSON document attached to principals as identity based policies or to resources as resource based policies. So by default, whenever we are creating a user, right? So let's say here I'm adding a new user, and let's say I'm not going to attach anything. Okay. Now I'm not going to attach any permissions for this. You can see permission summary. It has no resources. So by default, if you don't attach any permissions, the users will not have any access to the console. Though you will be able to log in as a user, but you will not have access anything. So you will have to add that user to any permissions, or you'll have to add that user to a group. Only then they will get the permissions. Now, generally, when we talk about your policies, they can be divided into two types. So we have the managed policies and we have your inline policies. Again, um, under your managed policies, this can be divided as two. So you have AWS managed policies and you have customer managed policies. Okay, so first we will look at your managed policies. Now, AWS managed policies are the policies that are created and managed by AWS. These are created and managed by AWS. And your customer managed policies are the policies that are created and managed by customers, which are basically us, the end users. Until now, we have been using the AWS managed policy. So here, if I go to the, if I look at the permissions, you see this logo, this icon, this basically tells it's an AWS managed policy. And also here you can see the type, it says AWS managed. That means this policy is created and managed by AWS. Then why do we need customer managed policies? Now, there might be cases where um, the AWS managed policies may not have the necessary permissions that you need. Okay, it may not contain the permissions that you will need to control the access. So you can go ahead and create a custom policy, custom permission, which we can call it as your customer managed policies. Right? So let's say, for example, again, as of now, I have given you the EC2 read-only access. Now again, so this read-only access, it gives you access to everything, all the resources. But no, let's say I want to restrict access only to the users. That means you should be able to see only users. You should not be able to see user groups or any roles or any policies. So I can create a custom policy for this, which will restrict this access. So here on the left hand side, if you go to policies, now this is where you should be able to see all the policies. As of now, we have 1089 policies. And if you look at this type, this will tell you whether it is AWS managed or customer managed. So let's go ahead and create a custom policy. So here on the right hand side, you can see create policy. And there are two ways you can do this. You can either make use of this visual editor, or if you know JSON code, you can directly make use of this. So here, for example, you know what actions you want to allow. So let's say I'm looking for IAM. Now within IAM, what do you want to allow? So let's say I'm looking for the users. So I want to give list user access. That's all, nothing else. I don't want to give anything else. right? So again, you can restrict this for specific users if you want. So under IAM, okay, this is showing sources. Mm, this is showing. Okay, fine, no problem. So see, this is one way, right, which you can which generates a JSON for you, or you can use this visual editor as well. So which service? Let's say in my case, IAM service. Okay, so that will be the service. Now within this, what do you want to allow? I want to allow read access. Now, which action do you want to allow read access? So let's say I want to allow list users only. So where is my? Okay, sorry, it's over here. So list access. So I want to allow list users only. I don't want to allow anything. So this is your granular level of permissions. And then you want to give write access, like create users, create groups. You can do that also. And let's say this is all I want to do. Okay. And then next, give it a name. So let's say custom IAM policy. We can give a description. And here you get to review and click on create policy, and this will create a custom IAM policy for us. So here you can see this one, it says customer managed. That means we as a user have created this. Make sense?
Yes.
So custom policy is again something that we use very commonly based on the use case, based on the requirement. This is something you will definitely end up using. Now, let's say I want to add this to the group, right? So earlier I've given you these permissions, right? Now I don't want these permissions. I'll remove this, and let's say I'll attach the custom policy. So we'll go to add permissions, attach policies, and I want to attach this. So now your permissions are even more restricted. And when you click on this, you should be able to see what you're allowing. So you're allowing only IAM access to the IAM, which is to list the user. So you can only list the users, but you won't be able to see the details of these users. Okay, I'll have to delete this one as well. So if you want, you can go ahead and try that. Give it a try and tell me what is happening. Are you guys accessing this?
Yes, are doing it.
Okay.
For me, it says like the access denied.
Access denied when doing what?
Or like trying to access IAM services.
Correct. But okay, you're okay. Um, okay, I one moment then. I'll have to add some more permission then. Um, Permissions. Let's go first. Let's edit this and um, we'll have to give you read access to mm, to get user get user policy get user policy. Okay, get
Access denied the IAM.
yeah. One moment.
Okay.
Can you try now?
It's still the same.
Hmm.
Same.
Okay, get account summary list list. You can try now.
Okay. Same.
Hmm.
Uh, so how do we know, like, for example, you created two users, right? Like Bharat and Prokshit. So if you click on Prokshit, like, how I know that you have given access to IAM or EC2 or Lambda? So
Yeah, I
how
mean
will I
that.
know
Yeah, so you will have to basically try accessing the services,
Okay.
and if you're able to access service, you have the access. If not, you don't have the access.
Yeah,
Um,
that I got to know. Is there any kind of a dashboard where I can see, okay, I have access to this and not this?
no, unless you have access to the IAM service, where you can see what all permissions are attached. If you don't have
Okay.
access to that, there is no other way. You will have to
Okay.
reach out to like the owner of that account to check what all permissions you have.
Okay, got it.
So when you're trying to access the service, what is the error message? There should be
Uh,
at the end. It should be showing something. Can you tell me that, or you can share a screenshot?
Sure. I've shared the screenshot already.
Is
Actually, my
that
mic was not working. So yeah, like getting that access denied. Add MFA for root user.
no? This is the earlier one.
Okay,
Uh,
from the user level. Okay.
Get account summary. One moment. Let me see. Get
So
account.
so the other error says like you don't have permission to IAM list policies.
Correct. List policies. Okay. One minute. Let me see. List policies. Yes, list policies. That's. You try now.
Sure. Uh, Now it says like you don't have permission to IAM user policies.
So on the left hand side, are you able to see the dashboards and all those options?
Yeah, I'm able to see.
We can see
And
the dashboard
when you click
users.
on
I think.
okay, when you click on users, what happens?
Yeah. I can see
Uh,
Bharat and myself,
Users
my
will
name.
come.
Okay, so
Plus
that's
the
that's
users.
basically what I've given you the access. All right.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Okay.
So I've given you. So if you see this permission,
Mm-hmm.
So you see list users, list policies, and get
Policy.
account summary. That's it. Any
Okay.
other things you will try doing, it will not work because I'm not giving you.
Okay.
So
Okay. Perfect.
this is basically a custom policy that we have created, which is very restricted, very granular level. So like this, you can make use of this IAM service to control the permissions, basically to control the policies and the permissions for the user accounts. Okay. So that's your policies, managed policies. So let's again under this, you have two types. You have the AWS managed policy, which is basically created and managed by AWS, and then you have customer managed. So any policies that you will be creating, that will fall under customer managed policies. Questions?
No.
Got it.
All right. And then you also have your inline policies. Okay. Now, what is inline policy? So, sometimes what happens is you may want to give the user certain additional privileges when compared to other users in a group. So for example, let's say here I have this group, and this is a common permission for all the users. Now let's say Bharat needs some additional privileges compared to Prokshit or vice versa, right? Then we can make use of your inline policies, which is restricted to a specific user only. So policies that you create and manage and that are embedded directly into a single user, single group, or single role, we can call that as your inline policies. Now, what's the difference between managed policies and inline policies? Now, one main difference is your managed policies, it is not dependent on, so this is not dependent on the user, group, or role, whereas this is dependent on the user, group, or role. Meaning under this, whenever I create any managed policies, if I delete the user or the group or the role, it does not have any effect on my managed policies. But under your inline policies, if I delete the user or the group or the role, it will delete the inline policies as well. So these inline policies, they are directly embedded with the user or with the group or with the role. And these inline policies can be attached to only one user or to only one group or to only one role. Managed policies can be attached to multiple users, multiple groups, multiple roles. So basically, there's a difference in the scope. That's it. But both can be used to define permissions. Make sense?
Yeah.
So now let's say I want to give Bharat some additional permission. So I can go to that user, and here you can see this add permissions, and you will see this create inline policy. So I'll click on create inline policy, and again, like I said, this is the same thing. So we choose a service. So which service you want to give access to? So let's say I want to give access to the EC2 service, and under EC2, what do you want to give? So let's say I want to give EC2 read access. So basically what all you want to do. So we'll give list access and then review required. So resources would be all resources, and then review policy, give it a name, custom inline policy, and then create policy. Now though policies maximum policy. Okay, so this is basically a limit that we are having. So you can see limit exceeded. So let me see, maximum policy size of 2048 bytes exceeded. That's interesting. Let's see. And let's say and let's say I'll just give Maybe just for sake of example, let me try this. So sure. Now what I've done is I have one policy attached as a group and one is inline policy, right? So this can be attached to multiple users, but this is restricted only to Bharat. So if I delete this user, then this policy, sorry, if I delete, correct, sorry. If I delete this user, the policy will also be deleted. Questions?
No.
No, no.
Okay, so I think that's it for today. Tomorrow, we will talk about your roles and we'll talk about your identity providers. One thing I wanted to check. So this Saturday, Sunday, I'm traveling a bit, so I won't be available. So I wanted to check if we can extend the session by 30 minutes tomorrow and day after tomorrow. Will you guys be available?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I'm
sure.
available.
Okay, cool. So then tomorrow 10 to 11:30 and then Friday also 10 to 11:30 so that we can, cover up a bit of the time so that we don't waste much of the time. Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So we will be finishing off with your IM most probably by tomorrow. And so that over the weekend I'll also give you some assignments related to IM so you can, do some hands-on and get a better understanding of this.
Okay.
And Friday we'll be starting off with the next service, which will be EC2. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cool, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow then.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And please don't forget to download the recordings.
Okay. Okay.